Hello there, beautiful makeup lovers. Thanks for tuning in with me and a very warm welcome to my channel. Today I want to do a full review on the Dynasty palette of Certifeye. I did do a first impression on my channel. I'll link it up here in the corner for you if you're also interested in this one. But in this video I want to give you the full review because I have been using this now for like almost 3 weeks and I really used it for 1 week exclusively because I did have it in my travel bag for 1 week, so I didn't have any other option basically. But before I get into the review itself, I want to show you 2 more looks that I did with this. So today I want to do another look with the Dynasty palette from Certifeye. I am planning to use more of the colors in the green row and in the brown row. I think they could go pretty together, so let's jump into it. Here you see me taking the color Fortune and applying it on a big fluffy blending brush. And then I take it and apply it on my crease until my brow bow. I really work it in there, blend it out nicely so I have a nice transition shade to work with. After I applied my transition shade all over both eyes, I took the color Trunk in the palette, which is the dark brown, and then I deepened up my crease with this one. After deepening up my crease, I went again into the color Fortune with a bigger brush again to kind of blend out the edges a little bit more. Next up I took the color Opulence. This is this really nice vibrant green that I really wanted to use, and I took a smaller, preciser brush but still a bit fluffy, and I applied it basically on the inner corner of my movable eyelid and on the outer corner in the end. Next up I took a small shader brush and I sprayed it with a fixing spray to make it more wet, and then I took the color Glisten in the palette, the shimmery green, and I applied it on the middle of my lid that I left free here, and yeah, I packed it really on nicely there to really get that shimmer going. Then I went back into the color Fortune to work on my lower lash line, and I applied it generally all over my lower lash line. Then I went back into the color Trunk. This is this dark brown matte that we have there, and I used it to deepen up the outer third, let's say, of my lower lash line to deepen up that eye look also over there. Up next I'm taking the color Emerald, which is this dark matte green, and I'm putting it on a dense brow brush actually, and I put it kind of very subtle on my lash line, on my upper lash line, to deepen it up a little bit. this is a finished look. I used the browns to surround kind of the eye, and then used the greens to, you know, make it pop. And I really like this combination. I think it ended up really pretty. And I don't know, I think I didn't film that I used the color Gem as an inner corner and brow highlight. I don't know, somehow my camera went wild. And anyway, that's the look. So in the look today, I want to combine the corals and the greens. And on the lower lash line, I believe I'm gonna do something like purpley or bluish. I don't know yet. So please don't get confused, because I am using a palette next to it that has a mirror, but I'm only using that one on my eyes. Let's go. The first color up for this look is the color Queen, which is this really nice matte coral pinky shade. And I'm taking it on a big blending brush, and I'm going to dip into it to build up my crease and to put it as a transition shade, to put it between my crease and my brows. And yeah, I'm a bit sorry, because when I did this look I didn't realize how big this other palette that I used the mirror from is. But yeah, you can still see what I'm doing. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. Next color up is the color Cloak, which is this deeper coral pinky shade, and I'm gonna use this to deepen up my crease that I already built it up with the transition shade Queen. And I'm using it on a nice blending brush from Zoeva, and it is a really pigmented one, so be aware of that. And here I am starting with my crease. I took a fluffier blending brush again to blend out a little bit the edges. I did not use any more color there, it was just to clean up and smoothen out those edges. Then I went in with some concealer to cut my crease. Actually half of my crease, because I just cut it from the inner corner until more or less the middle. After cutting my crease, I went into the color Glisten, and it went right on this cut crease to give it really a pop and to have really a kind of nice contrast against the pinks and corals that I used in my crease. And I really tried to pack it on there as good as I can. Now I went into the color Emerald. This is this dark matte green, to deepen out the outer V of my lid with that color and smudge it in with the color Glisten that I put onto my cut crease. Now I went back into the color Cloak to smudge out a bit the color Emerald and my outer V, to blend it out a bit better into the look, and also later on to give a bit of more definition on the upper part of the cut crease that I did with the color Glisten. Now I went back in with a bigger blending brush to smooth out those edges to make everything look nice and blended. Now I took the color Ground on a smaller blending brush or a buffer brush, and then I put it all on my lower lash line from the inside to the outside to start up this lower lash line. Now I took this color Empress to put it on the outer side of my lower lash line to deepen up also the lower lash line with this darker matte purple. Now I went into the color Wealth to give the first sort of the lower lash line a little bit of shimmer, a little bit of shine, to kind of brighten it up a little bit. In this step I'm taking now the color Jewel, which is the shimmer pink in the palette, to put my inner corner highlight and also my brow bone highlight. So now you have a little bit of an impression what you can do with this palette. I also did a look in my first impression videos, so definitely check this one out because it is different than the two you just saw. But now let's get to the review of this palette. What are my thoughts on this palette? So basically what I can say all over is that it still inspires me, that I still like it. I love the color story. Every time I came to it and started to do my makeup and to do my eye look, I was very inspired. I had a lot of different combinations going on. And also during because I took it in a travel bag and it was also involving business. So for business, these two rows up here are all good, you know, I could definitely use this there, was not a problem whatsoever. And then you still had these 4 really colorful rows, which was super nice. So in the evening you could just pop, you know, a colorful lower lash line to spice up your look a little bit. And I really enjoyed this kind of use I got out of it. And regarding the long lastivity, they do last as long as any other eyeshadow on my lids. Eyeshadows tend to not last super long on my lids because I have very oily lids, so they last usually around like 8-9 hours. This is kind of the, you know, point where it starts to move around and crease a bit, and these were no different on this, but this is the case for me with all my eyeshadows. There's no exception actually for me. And yes, so the shades itself. So I have to say that I have a couple of shades in here that I find are not performing as well as the others in the palette. So for example, this shade Ground that I used in my first impression video, I find it's quite sheer and you have to build it up quite a bit in order to get it really there with this beautiful color, because the color is beautiful, but you do have to build it up quite a lot, which I did not realize with similar shades. Like for example, this green here, which is like the lighter green, while this is the lighter blue, goes on like super pigmented. And yeah, so also all the others from the like lighter mattes, they go on really nicely. And for the dark mattes, it's the color Emerald that goes on a bit difficult. I have it here on my outer lid today, and I don't know, it was just really hard to really pack it there. You really had to go in there for being such a dark color. So yeah, these two in the matte range are not my favorites, I have to say that. And I also think that unfortunately these 3 are quite close together. So like I did today, if you put this like as a transition shade and then you want to deepen up your crease with this one with the color Cloak, then you really have to put the color Cloak to deepen up your crease. And additionally, I find that Riches and Cloak are quite similar on the lid. But I mean, if you go close and you pay attention to it, you can see the difference. But yeah, that's just one thing I noticed. And the shimmers, I did mention in my first impression that I wish they would be a bit more foiled and they would be a bit more, you know, there. And I have to say that I still stand for the statement with the color Wealth here. and maybe a little bit with the color Opal, but you can make Opal look very foiled if you do a cut crease, or if you, I don't know, like wet your brush or really build it up. But the color Wealth, is definitely more of a satin finish, and this would be a color I would really love to be really metallic. And the color Mantle is also a satin finish, but for this color I don't mind, because I think it goes really well with the color, if this makes sense. So with the shimmers all over, I'm actually happy, except of the color Wealth. I think it could be a bit more foiled, but this is really personal preference. This is not something I would say in general, no, this shade is not good. I would say it's just personal preference. And another thing is that the color Glisten, I really like it. I have it on my inner corners or my inner lid today. And this one I really like. It's super nice, but it does have quite some fallout, this one. In general, this palette doesn't have too much fallout, but somehow this shade alone has quite some fallout. So yeah, you just have to be aware of this. I don't mind so much. It's nothing you cannot just swipe away after applying your eye look, but you should be aware of it, just in case you mind. And yeah, so being said all these points, I still think this is a great palette. There are just actually 3 shades that I don't reach for too often, because they don't have the finish, or they are not that pigmented as I want it to be. And these are the color Wealth, Grand, and Emerald, as I already mentioned. And it would be nice if these colors would be a bit more different to each other. Like this one a bit more darker, the color Cloak a bit more darker than the color Queen. Or maybe this one being lighter, I don't know, but just making a bit more of a difference between these two. And the color Riches, I don't know, could have been maybe a bit more electric red, in my opinion, but that's just really personal preference, because I do think a lot of people also appreciate a more tuned down red. So overall, I do recommend this palette. Just be aware of the things I mentioned. And I recommend it especially if you do want to have a palette that you open up and you have a lot of choices of combination, because this offers you so much. And you can do, like, because you have a brighter matte and a darker matte in the same shade, you can build up your crease always with one color. That's really nice, that's really cool. And you always have a corresponding shimmer. So if you want to go monochromatic, you can actually do this with each row here. And it does offer you also some neutral options in case you want to have more like the neutral thing with a pop of color going on. And yeah, so I definitely recommend it. I think it's an amazing palette. Definitely for someone who loves color and who wants to have an option in one palette without having just one shade of each color. I think that's really cool. And if you're new to color, like very new, maybe some of the mattes are a bit too pigmented for you, like for example Opulence or Emperor, or especially Cloak. Actually, they're really pigmented. Like you have to be really light-handed going in there if you're new to color. So if you're very new to color, I don't know if the pigments would be too much for you. But from the build-up of this palette, from the color story, I do believe it's actually a good start also for people who just get into color, because you have like 3 options for each color and not just one, and then you have to kind of color combo around even though you're very new to color. So yeah, that was my review on the Dynasty palette of Certifeye. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this palette. Do you have it? And maybe which kind of looks you like to do with it, and all this fuss, you know, let me know. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate the time you take to watch this video. Please subscribe to my channel so I can see you here in my next video, because I would love to chat more with you. And yeah, see you in my next video. Bye bye.